Hi everyone, it's Shell from Scrap Secrets and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is a craft and chat where we're going to put together a birthday card for a woman who's turning 104. We're going to be using some Lawn Fawn and Honeybee Stamps products. So the stamp sets that we're going to use are Lawn Fawn's How You Bean Buttons add-on, the So Very Mice stamp set, as well as the Honeybee Stamps Barn Wood Planks die. I took the very first die, and it doesn't matter which one you use. They're all relatively the same. There's just a little bit of a different pattern on them. And ran that through my die cut machine because I wanted to do this technique that I saw Dawn W do on Honeybee's channel. So obviously hers turned out a little bit better than mine, or actually maybe a lot better than mine. But I wanted to see how this technique would work. I'm taking 3 colors of Distress ink, tea dye, vintage photo, and walnut stain, and running them over the image. Now, because this image is die cut and embossed, the raised areas are going to get more of that ink pad that you draw across it, like drag across, than the other areas. So I'm taking a little bit of the ink that's left on my brush and going over it and then doing a second layer, dragging them down. So you can go back in and add shading where you want to. So I went back in where the lightest parts are and used a little bit more tea dye. The medium parts, I used the vintage photo, and then the walnut stain was the darkest parts. So I am just going to keep doing this until I like the results. I'm going to use that blending brush to go in and add more color to the areas that I want. I wanted the middle to be a little bit lighter, and then where the images are going to actually sit on this, because I want it to be kind of like a table or a shelf. Underneath the images, I wanted those places to be the darkest, so I'm just making sure to add my color there. Again, this technique is imperfect, and every time you're going to do it, it's going to come out different, but I really, really love it. It really brings out the texture and looks like real wood. So I highly recommend that you go over to Honeybee Stamps and check out her video. It's the one where she talks about fences, and she uses I guess it's the new fence dye from Honeybee Stamps, and she does 3 different shades of fencing. She does a whitewash fence, lighter brown fence, and then a darker brown fence. So now I'm going to start working on the background. And because these mice images have teeny tiny, like very thin tails, and I wanted to kind of do some masking, I wasn't really sure how I was going to do this. And I don't think I've ever done this technique before. So the mouse that I stamped first has the needle coming out of it, and his tail's really, really tiny. So what I did was I stamped it onto the card panel that we're going to be putting on the card base. And then I took a scrap piece of the same exact cardstock that I used, which was 110 pound from Michaels. And I'm going to stamp out the image again, and then I'm going to stamp out the mouse with the ring, the hoop that's up, that he's holding up. And I'm going to mask that off and use the jar underneath of it. So now you're gonna see me do the mask. I'm really just going to stamp that one more time. I stamped it and it was very, very light, so I just added a little bit of ink to the bottom where I needed to create the mask. Stamp that, and then I'm going to cut it out. I did cut out most of that because you can see Oreo had decided to jump up onto the desk and he was playing with the camera. He was very, very intrigued by the camera. I'm going to mask off that bottom section where this jar is going to overlap. I want the mouse to be standing on top of the jar. I'm going to ink it up and then stamp it down. So again, this one was part of the image that is kind of, some of the areas were really, really tight, like at the top of the hoop where there's that little, and you can obviously tell I don't sew, but I think it was like the little screw that goes into the top. And then the mouse's tail, those were things that I really couldn't cut around, so I just ended up cutting them off. And we're actually going to go back later on and stamp them onto that original piece where we stamped the first mouse, just to make things a little bit easier. So I'm stamping in the buttons in the jar, and then I'm going to go back in, and I know, I'm sorry, this really was a little bit off camera, but there are some like sewn images on here. So there are leaves, and then there's two different tops of flowers. There's a little face, there's a heart on there. So there's a lot of different, and then there's like kind of just random lines. So you can make your own design in there. So stamped those out in Distress Oxide, and that was in Rustic Wilderness. And then Kitsch Flamingo, I did the happy birthday and the top of the flower. So once those were done, I'm going to color. So I'm going to do the story time as part of the coloring because I think I left the whole entire thing in there, or as much as I had filmed, which was a lot. But I'm not really doing anything special, but I thought that I would leave it in so that I could do this little bit of story time. So I've been in my position for about 2 months now, and I'm traveling a lot more than I have probably since I was working as a trainer for Nestle. So it's been like 5-10-ish years. I had my first in-person account calls this past week up in Boston, and the last one I had was February of 2022. So it's been a little while, and when I was home packing, I was looking for things to wear because this account is still kind of old school. They're not business casual. They're actually business, where the men wear suits and ties, and the women have to get dressed up. So I was looking for a fancy dress and some nice shoes. So I found something that fit because during the pandemic, things were not fitting all the time. And, so I found things, I packed them, and I got myself dressed and went over to Panera's, which is where I was meeting my broker. I was there a little bit early so that I could do a little bit of work before she got there, and, decided to grab something to eat. Sitting there minding my own business, and this woman comes up to me and she says, "Oh, I love your shoes." Now, these shoes are a couple of years old. They're probably almost 5 years old. I probably got them at Target or Kohl's. I said, "Oh, thank you." And then she said, "But you really shouldn't be wearing them." And I said, "Oh, okay." And she was telling me all of the reasons why I shouldn't be wearing them. And, I said, I don't know why I felt compelled to go back at her with this, but I did. And I said, I've had 3 knee surgeries. I said, so most of the time I'm home in yoga pants. And, when I walk, I wear sneakers, and I really don't wear heels. This is just every once in a while. She said, "Well, these have no support and they don't this and that." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And I did tell her I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and she said, "Well, yeah, you definitely do. But, I've seen people with it worse." And I'm thinking, who is this lady? So turns out she was a pediatrician. She was 72 years old, and, she told me a lot about her life. And then, this is our first part of the conversation, and then she turns to me and she points to my midsection and says, "With just a little bit of weight, you can get rid of that. You'll be fine. You just do some weights and you can tone that up." Like, "Oh, thank you for your very much unsolicited advice. I really didn't ask about that, didn't ask what I could do." But she felt the need to tell me this. And then every time she had walked by, she was actually, I think, going back up and getting more coffee or whatever. She was there for a while. She's obviously retired and, was just kind of hanging out at Panera's. So she would walk by every once in a while and give me a little bit more advice, which obviously I didn't ask for. I wasn't offended by it. And I actually, the first time after she had left, I just started laughing. I'm like, who does this? And we have a joke in our family that little kids and old people are ones that'll just tell you 100% the truth. And that was kind of what she did. She was just like, "Hey, this is exactly what you should do." So I was a little taken aback, but again, not offended. And, she just kept coming up to me. And then as she was leaving, she did stop and say goodbye and said, she didn't say, "I hope you weren't offended," but she was like, "I hope you take my advice," or something like that. And so that whole entire time I'm waiting for my broker to show up. And she finally does right after this woman leaves. And ironically, the woman's name is not the woman who left, but my broker's name is Michelle. So she walks in and I say, "Michelle," I said, before I really even said hi, I'm like, "I have to tell you what just happened." So I told Michelle what happened, and we were just laughing. We're like, I just can't believe people will just randomly go up and give people unsolicited advice. I guess I must have looked like I I don't know, like I have a friendly face or something like that, which I don't feel like I do. I think usually I kind of give up that like resting bitch face, and I don't know what compelled her to come up and talk to me, but I just thought that was really funny and couldn't believe that that's what she had said. So I am taking her advice. I am not wearing heels. I'm looking for different shoes, and I am doing some weight training. So we'll see if her advice was correct. She did tell me, she said she's seen people with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome mess up their feet pretty bad. So, I don't know if she knew I had that or if it was just part of the conversation that when we were talking, I don't know if she noticed it or if she just kind of knew it from when I said something, but she kind of gave me some very much unsolicited advice. But I just thought that I would share that with you guys and make you laugh a little bit, because it was just one of those things that I was like, did that just really happen? And nobody was there to witness it. And I just couldn't believe that was actually what was happening. But got some unsolicited advice in addition to my in-person appointments. Had a really, really great week in Boston. Got a lot of things done. Got a huge order when I came home with some other things that I was working on. I actually spent 2 days up in Boston, 1 day at the account and then another day in my broker's office, where I met all of the broker reps one-on-one, and we kind of just went through things, and we got some really big opportunities and just kind of presented new opportunities for them, and then talked about things that we needed help on and planning for 2024, because we are already starting to work on 2024 plans. So it's kind of crazy. So that's kind of just the work thing. The kittens were crazy, my mom said, when they were here. Oreo scared Mila half to death. He actually jumped up onto the bed when Mila was upstairs, and he knocked over, I had like a jacket or something on the edge of the bed, and knocked it over, and it landed on Mila, and I don't know if she jumped or screamed or something, so Oreo scared her, and then she scared Oreo, so Oreo ran downstairs. My mom said they were just crazy and running all around, and if you can hear them in the back of this video, if you hear any background noise, it's them. They are running back and forth. I've tried to do this so many times, but they are just really, really crazy. This is, I don't know, it's 9 o'clock at night, and I don't know whether they just have like the zoomies or they're just insane, because they'll be good sometimes and then not. They'll nap and then they wake up. So, all right, so let's get back to the card. And I am now stamping out that second image, the mouse that's holding up that, the little, what the heck do you even call that? Oh my goodness. You can tell I'm not a seamstress. I do nothing with sewing, but the little ring, I guess the sewing ring. And I decided to put that down there because there are those intricate pieces that were really hard to cut out. So you'll see I did go off camera, fussy cut out the images. And to make them all cohesive, I took a brush marker, and then I'm going to go around all of the edges to just make sure that there's no white showing. I'm not great at fussy cutting. I could have used my brother's Scan and Cut, but I decided I didn't feel like taking that out or turning it on just for these two images. I felt like it was a little bit easier to just go ahead and fussy cut. So that's what I'm going to do. And then we're going to get ready to do the background so that we can assemble the card. This card took a long time to do the coloring, but other than that, it came together fairly quickly. The coloring is always the most difficult part for me. I did cut some of it out, but you saw I didn't really do any crazy techniques. I kind of just used 2 colors to color everything in, 2 or 3 colors to color everything in. So now I'm using a stencil from Kindred Stamps, and I believe this one's probably retired. They don't usually keep things around for very long, and they don't usually do like a second production run of anything. So I'm using that because I thought it looked like some pretty cool wallpaper, and I used shaded lilac, which I thought went very nicely with the purple buttons. I was looking to try to tie something in. I was going to go with cracked pistachio to pull out that green because that was in there, but I decided that I wanted to go with the purple because the green is I colored in the leaves and then the buttons. The purple just had the buttons. The blue doesn't really have anything else, so I could have gone with a blue too, but I decided to go with purple, just kind of a preference. So, and then the pink is in 3 locations, was in the flower, the happy birthday, and then in the buttons. I guess 4, as well as the mice nose and then their ears. So now I'm going to get ready to glue all of the pieces together. I'm going to glue on that table or shelf piece that we did, and I am loving this. I really, really love this technique. The more and more I look at the card, which is sitting right next to me, you can see all of the texture. I'm not really sure how it's coming through on the video, but in person, you can see so much texture. You can it almost feels like if you reached out, it would be like real wood. I really, really do love this technique. So I'm going to continue to do that for the wood planks, and I'm going to try to see if I can do that for like the whitewash, kind of like Dawn did too, because I think that was really, really cool. So using that same Barely Arts precision glue to glue all of the images into place. And if you notice, I had the stamps down and then could just line it right back up on top of it. And it doesn't even look like I had to cut his tail off or cut the little screw off at the top of that. So I don't know why I've never done this technique before, but I think I'm going to do it because there's definitely images where it's really hard to cut around those teeny tiny pieces or those skinny pieces. So that's a great way to do it, to stamp it down and then just use that as a guide for where to put everything. So I'm adding some white gel pen to the sides of the jar as well as dots to the cheeks for both of the mice. And I'm going to take that same brush pen that we used to go around all the images and add eyelashes to the eyes of the mice. So the last step really is gluing the card down to the card base, and I glued it to a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch card. And that is the project for today. I also want to remind you guys to check out the 2023 Countdown to Christmas series that Marie and I are doing. We post videos every Monday and Friday, and there's giveaways over there, so make sure you check out those videos. That's the card, and I thank you for watching. If you have comments or questions, please feel free to leave them below, and I'll see you again real soon for another video. Bye!